Okay, that's probably good. And there we go. Pretty, pretty images. I think that one might be computer generated. I don't think it's an actual image. Certainly, it's got like extra lens flare that wouldn't be there otherwise. Um, Earth Ascendant, or Luna Ascendant. So yeah, we are now up to quote book two unquote of The Moon is a Harsh Mistress, um, by Robert Heinlein. And so there has been the lunar uprising. Uh, I think both Warden and uh, Alvarez, the head of security, and the Warden are both dead now, I believe. Um, so it's Luna for loonies. There's only one tiny problem. Earth is probably not going to stand for that because Luna is one of their biggest bread baskets, so to speak. They are where a large amount of grain and agricultural resources comes from to feed the overpopulated. I want to say in the book that it's 10 billion people are on Earth at this point, which is not wholly unreasonable, but it is about the time when people would start you'd have massive food shortages without an external supply. Um, 7 billion is probably too many as it is. 10 billion, basically all other life on Earth has been more or less eradicated, and we're going to start eating each other's legs. So don't let our population explode to 10 billion. It'd be bad. I forget how many people are living on the moon at this point. I think it has been mentioned. It is countable in the millions, though. I do not think we have like a billion lunar people in this book yet at this point, between Novilen and New Hong Kong, or Luna Hong Kong, and a few others. Daily reminder, support a free Hong Kong. That'll get me banned from China. There is no free Hong Kong. China won. Go China and our glorious overlords. Okay, that aside, thanks again, everyone, to everyone for getting out and voting. It's important to be part of the process. Otherwise, otherwise, why have the process at all? Why not have a brutal dictatorship? All right. Yeah, it's enough of a recap. I'm not sure really what other finer points we have to worry about. My time again is a tad limited. I'm checking to see how this chapter here is in terms of length. It's pretty long. Yeah, it's going to be the one chapter today probably because that's like double. All right. Yeah. Okay. I know where I am now. Lost my bookmark for a minute there, for a sec there, and had to scramble to find which page it was on. Hmm. While I was flipping back to the beginning of the chapter from the end. Alrighty. Uh, Not too much, not a lot of action in this one. It's more of the nitty gritties again. So one of the things I actually like about the book is how steeped it is in the nitty gritties, the minutia of setting up a revolution, successful or otherwise. It's like, oh, it could have gone straight to, oh, we set up the building blocks for a revolution and then it succeeded. No, it's like, no, you need all these little details The details are important. The devil is in the details. All right. Book 2, A Rabble in Arms. Chapter 14. So, a wave of patriotism swept over our new nation and unified it. Isn't that what the histories say? Oh, brother. My dinkum word, preparing a revolution isn't as much hoo-hoo as having won it. Here we were, in control too soon, nothing ready, and 1,000 things to do. Authority in Luna was gone, but Lunar Authority Earthside and Federated Nations behind it were very much alive. Had they landed one troop ship, orbited one cruiser, any time next week or two, could have taken Luna back cheap. We were a mob. New catapult had been tested, but canned rock missiles ready to go you could count on fingers of one hand. My left hand. Nor was catapult a weapon that could be used against ships, nor against troops. We had notions for fighting off ships. At moment, were just notions. We had a few hundred cheap laser guns stockpiled in Hong Kong Luna. Chinese engineers are smart, but few men trained to use them. Moreover, Authority had useful functions. Bought ice and grain, sold air and water and power, held ownership or control at a dozen key points. No matter what was done in future, wheels had to turn. Perhaps wrecking city offices of Authority had been hasty. I thought so, as records were destroyed. However, Prof maintained that loonies, all loonies, needed a symbol to hate and destroy, and those offices were least valuable and most public. But Mike controlled communications, and that meant control of most everything. Prof had started with control of news to and from Earthside, leaving to Mike censorship and faking of news until we could get around to what to tell Terra, and had added subphase M, which cut off Complex from rest of Luna, and with it Richardson Observatory and associated laboratories, Pierce Radioscope, Selenophysical Station, and so forth. These were a problem, as Terran scientists were always coming and going and staying as long as 6 months, stretching time by centrifuge. Most Terrans in Luna, save for a handful of tourists, 34, were scientists. Something had to be done about these Terrans, but meanwhile keeping them from talking to Terra was enough. For time being, Complex was cut off by phone, and Mike did not permit capsules to stop at any station in Complex, even after travel was resumed, which it was as soon as Finn Nielsen and squad were through with dirty work. Turned out, Warden was not dead, nor had we planned to kill him. Prof figured that a live Warden could always be made dead, whereas a dead one could not be made live if we needed him. So, plan was to half kill him, make sure he and his guards could put up no fight. Then break in fast while Mike restored oxygen. With fans turning at top speed, Mike computed it would take 4 minutes and a bit to reduce oxygen to effective zero. So, 5 minutes of increasing hypoxia, 5 minutes of anoxia, then force lower lock while Mike shot in pure oxygen to restore balance. This should not kill anyone. Hazard to attackers would come from some or all of those inside having pea suits. But even that might not matter. Hypoxia is sneaky. You can pass out without realizing you are short on oxygen. His new chum's favorite fatal mistake. So, Warden lived through it, and 3 of his women. But Warden, though he lived, was no use. Brain had been oxygen-starved too long, a vegetable. No guard recovered, even though younger than he. Would appear anoxia broke necks. In rest of Complex, nobody was hurt. Once lights were on and oxygen restored, they were okay, including 6 rapist murderers under lock in barracks. Finn decided that shooting was just too good for them, so he went judge and used his squad as jury. They were stripped, hamstrung at ankles and wrists, turned over to women in Complex. Makes me sick to think about what happened next, but don't suppose they lived through as long an ordeal as Mary Lyons endured. Women are amazing creatures, sweet, soft, gentle, and far more savage than we are. Let me mention those Fink spies out of order. Wyo had been fiercely ready to eliminate them, but when we got around to them, she had lost stomach. I expected Prof to agree, but he shook head. No, dear Wyo, much as I deplore violence, there are only two things to do with an enemy: kill him, or make a friend of him. Anything in between piles up trouble for the future. A man who thinks on his friends will do it again, and we have a long period ahead in which a Fink can be dangerous. They must go, and publicly, to cause others to be thoughtful. Wyo said, Professor, you once said that if you condemned a man, you would eliminate him personally. Is that what you are going to do? Yes, dear lady, and no. Their blood shall be on my hands. I accept responsibility. But I have in mind a way more likely to discourage other Finks. So Adam Celine announced that these persons had been employed by Juan Alvarez, late security chief for former Authority, as undercover spies, and gave names and addresses. Adam did not suggest that anything be done. One man remained on Dodge for 7 months by changing warrants and name. Then, early in '77, his body was found outside Novi Len's dock, but most of them lasted no more than hours. During first hours after coup d'etat, we were faced with a problem we had never managed to plan. Adam Celine himself. Who is Adam Celine? Where is he? This is his revolution. He handled every detail. Every comrade knows his voice. We are out in open now. So where is Adam? We batted it around much of that night, in room L of the Raffles. Argued it between decisions on 100 things that came up, and people wanted to know what to do, while Adam, through other voices, handled other decisions that did not require talk, composed phony news to send Earthside, kept Complex isolated, many things. Is no possible doubt. Without Mike, we could not have taken Luna, nor held it. My notion was that Prof should become Adam. Prof was always our planner and theoretician. Everyone knew him. Some key comrades knew that he was Comrade Bill, and all others knew and respected Professor Bernardo de la Paz. My word, he had taught half of leading citizens in Luna City, many from other warrens, was known to every VIP in Luna. No, said Prof. Why not? Asked Wyo. Prof, you're opted. Tell him, Mike. Comment reserved, said Mike. I want to hear what Prof has to say. I say you've analyzed it, Mike, Prof answered. Why, oh dearest comrade, I would not refuse were it possible. But there is no way to make my voice match that of Adam, and every comrade knows Adam by his voice. Mike made it memorable for that very purpose. We then considered whether Prof could be slipped in anyhow, showing him only on video and letting Mike reshape whatever Prof said into voice expected from Adam. Was turned down. Too many people knew Prof, had heard him speak. His voice and way of speaking could not be reconciled with Adam. Then they considered same possibility for me. My voice and Mike's were baritone, and not many people knew what I sounded like over phone, and none over video. I tromped on it. People were going to be surprised enough to find me one of our chairman's lieutenants. They would never believe I was number one. I said, let's combine deals. Adam has been a mystery all along. Keep him that way. He'll be seen only over video, in a mask. Prof, you supply body. Mike, you supply voice. Prof shook his head. I can think of no surer way to destroy confidence at our most critical period than by having a leader who wears a mask. No, Manny. We talked about finding an actor to play it. We're no professional actors in Luna, but we're good amateurs in Luna Civic Players and Novi Bolshoi Theater Associates. No, said Prof. Aside from finding an actor of requisite character, one who would not decide to be Napoleon, We can't wait. Adam must start handling things not later than tomorrow morning. In that case, I said, you've answered it. Have to use mic and never put him on video. Radio only. Have to figure excuse, but Adam must never be seen. I'm forced to agree, said Prof. Man, my oldest friend, said Mike, why do you say that I can't be seen? Haven't you listened? I said. Mike, we have to show a face and body on video. You have a body, but it's several tons of metal. A face you don't have. Lucky you, don't have to shave. But what's to keep me from showing a face, man? I'm showing a voice this instant. But there's no sound behind it. I can show a face the same way. Was so taken aback I didn't answer. I stared at video screen, installed when we leased that room. A pulse is a pulse is a pulse. Electrons chasing each other. To Mike, whole world was variable series of electrical pulses, sent or received or chasing around his innards. I said, No, Mike. Why not, man? Because you can't. Voice you handle beautifully. Involves only a few thousand decisions a second, a slow crawl to you. But to build up video picture would require, say, 10 million decisions every second. Mike, you're so fast I can't even think about it. But you aren't that fast. Mike said softly, Want to bet, man? Wyo said indignantly, Of course Mike can if he says he can. Manny, you shouldn't talk that way. Wyo thinks an electron is something about the size and shape of a small pea. Mike, I said slowly, I won't put money on it. Okay, want to try? Shall I switch on video? I can switch it on, he answered. Sure you'll get the right one? Wouldn't do to have this show somewhere else. He answered testily, I'm not stupid. Now let me be, man, for I admit this is going to take just about all I've got. We waited in silence. Then screen showed a neutral gray with a hint of scan lines. Went black again, then a faint light filled the middle and congealed into cloudy areas, light and dark, ellipsoid. Not a face, but suggestion of face that one sees in cloud patterns covering Terra. It cleared a little and reminded me of pictures alleged to be ectoplasm, the ghost of a face. Suddenly firmed, and we saw Adam Selene. Was a still picture of a mature man. No background, just a face as if trimmed out of a print. Yet was, to me, Adam Selene. Could not be anyone else. Then he smiled, moving lips and jaw and touching tongue to lips, a quick gesture, and I was frightened. How do I look? He asked. Adam, said Wyo, your hair isn't that curly, and it should go back on each side above your forehead. You look as if you were wearing a wig, dear. Mike corrected it. Is that better? Not quite so much. And don't you have dimples? I was sure I could hear dimples when you chuckle, like Prof's. Mike Adams smiled again. This time he had dimples. How should I be dressed, Wyo? Are you at your office? I'm still at the office. Have to be tonight. Background turned gray, then came into focus and color. A wall calendar behind him gave date, Tuesday 19, May 2076. A clock showed correct time. Near his elbow was a carton of coffee. On desk was a solid picture, a family group, 2 men, a woman, 4 children. Was background noise, muted roar of Old Dome Plaza louder than usual. I heard shouts and in distance some singing, Simon's version of Marseillaise. Off screen, Ginwala's voice said, Господин? Adam turned toward it. I'm busy, Albert, he said patiently. No calls from anyone but Cell B. You handle everything else. He looked back at us. Well, Wyo, suggestions? Prof? Man, my doubting friend? Will I pass? I rubbed eyes. Mike, can you cook? Certainly, but I don't. I'm married.
Adam, said Wyo, how can you look so neat after the day we've had?
I don't let little things worry me.
He looked at Prof.
Professor, if the picture is okay, let's discuss what I'll say tomorrow. I was thinking of preempting the 800 newscast, have it announced all night, and pass the word down the cells.
We talked rest of night. I sent up for coffee twice, and Mike Adam had his carton renewed. When I ordered sandwiches, he asked Ginwala to send out for some. I caught a glimpse of Albert Ginwala in profile, a typical Babu, polite and faintly scornful. Hadn't known what he looked like. Mike ate while we ate, sometimes mumbling around a mouthful of food. When I asked, professional interest, Mike told me that, after he had picture built up, he had just programmed most of it for automatic, and gave his attention just to facial expressions. But soon I forgot it was fake. Mike Adam was talking with us by video. Was all much more convenient than by phone. By 0300 we had policy settled. Then Mike rehearsed speech. Prof found points he wanted to add. Mike made revisions. Then we decided to get some rest. Even Mike Adam was yawning. Although in fact Mike held fort all through night, guarding transmissions to Terra, keeping complex walled off, listening at many phones. Prof and I shared big bed. Wyo stretched out on couch. I whistled lights out. For once we slept without weights. While we had breakfast, Adam Celine addressed Free Luna. He was gentle, strong, warm, and persuasive.
Citizens of Free Luna, friends, comrades, to those of you who do not know me, let me introduce myself. I am Adam Celine, chairman of the Emergency Committee of Comrades for Free Luna. Now of Free Luna. We are free at last. The so-called authority, which has long oh, I'm going to guess that's a typo, usurped power in this our home, has been overthrown. I find myself temporary head of such government as we have, the Emergency Committee. Shortly, as quickly as can be arranged, you will opt your own government.
Adam smiled and made a gesture inviting help.
In the meantime, with your help, I shall do my best. We will make mistakes. Be tolerant. Comrades, if you have not revealed yourselves to friends and neighbors, it is time you did so. Citizens, requests may reach you through your comrade neighbors. I hope you will comply willingly. It will speed the day when I can bow out and life can get back to normal. A new normal, free of the authority, free of guards, free of troops stationed on us, free of passports and searches and arbitrary arrests. There has to be a transition. To all of you, please go back to work. Resume normal lives. To those who worked for the authority, the need is the same. Go back to work. Wages will go on, your jobs will stay the same, until we can decide what is needed, what happily no longer is needed now that we are free, and what must be kept but modified. You new citizens, transportees sweating out sentences pronounced on you Earthside. You are free. Your sentences are finished. But in the meantime, I hope that you will go on working. You are not required to, the days of coercion are gone, but you are urged to. You are, of course, free to leave the complex, free to go anywhere, and capsule service to and from the complex will resume at once. But before you use your new freedom to rush into town, let me remind you, there is no such thing as a free lunch. You are better off for the time being where you are. The food may not be fancy, but will continue hot and on time. To take on temporarily those necessary functions of the defunct authority, I have asked the general manager of Luno Hoko Company to serve. This company will provide temporary supervision and will start analyzing how to do away with the tyrannical parts of the authority and how to transfer the useful parts to private hands. So, please, help them. To you citizens of Terran nations among us, scientists and travelers and others, greetings! You are witnessing a rare event, the birth of a nation. Birth means blood and pain. There has been some. We hope it is over. You will not be inconvenienced unnecessarily, and your passage home will be arranged as soon as possible. Conversely, you are welcome to stay, still more welcome to become citizens. But for the present, I urge you to stay out of the corridors. Avoid incidents that might lead to unnecessary blood, unnecessary pain. Be patient with us, and I urge my fellow citizens to be patient with you. Scientists from Terra, at the observatory and elsewhere, go on with your work and ignore us. Then you won't even notice that we are going through the pangs of creating a new nation. One thing. I am sorry to say that we are temporarily interfering with your right to communicate with Earthside. This we do from necessity. Censorship will be lifted as quickly as possible. We hate it as much as you do.
Adam added one more request.
Don't try to see me, comrades, and phone me only if you must. All others, write if you need to. Your letters will receive prompt attention. But I am not twins. I got no sleep last night and can't expect much tonight. I can't address meetings, can't shake hands, can't meet delegations. I must stick to this desk and work, so that I can get rid of this job and turn it over to your choice. He grinned at them. Expect me to be as hard to see as Simon Jester.
It was a 15-minute cast, but that was the essence. Go back to work, be patient, give us time. Those scientists gave us almost no time. I should have guessed. It was my sort of pigeon. All communication Earthside channeled through Mike. But those brain boys had enough electronic equipment to stock a warehouse. Once they decided to, it took them only hours to breadboard a rig that could reach Terra. Only thing that saved us was a fellow traveler who thought Luna should be free. He tried to phone Adam Celine, wound up talking to one of a squad of women we had co-opted from C and D level. A system thrown together in self-defense as, despite Mike's request, half of Luna tried to phone Adam Celine after that videocast. Everything from requests and demands to busybodies who wanted who wanted to tell Adam how to do his job. After about 100 calls got routed to me through too much zeal by a comrade in phone company, we set up this buffer squad. Happily, Comrade Lady who took this call recognized that "sue them down" doctrine did not apply. She phoned me. Minutes later, myself and Finn Nielsen, plus some eager guns headed by Capsule, for the laboratory area. Our informant was scared to give name, but had told me where to find transmitter. We caught them transmitting, and was only fast action on Finn's part kept them breathing. His boys were itchy. But we did not want to make an example. Finn and I had settled that on the way out. It's hard to frighten scientists. Their minds don't work that way. Have to get at them from other angles. I kicked that transmitter to pieces and ordered Director to have everyone assemble in mess hall and required roll call, where a phone could hear. Then I talked to Mike, got names from him, and said to Director,
Doctor, you told me they were all here. We are missing so-and-so.
7 names.
Get them here.
Missing Terrans had been notified. Missing Terrans had been notified, had refused to stop what they were doing. Typical scientists. Then I talked. Loonies on one side of room, Terrans on other. To Terrans, I said,
We tried to treat you as guests, but 3 of you tried and perhaps succeeded in sending message Earthside.
I turned to Director.
Doctor, I could search Warden, surface structures, all labs, every space, and destroy everything that might be used for transmitter. I'm electron pusher by trade. I know what wide variety of components can be converted into transmitters. Suppose I destroy everything that might be useful for that, and, being stupid, take no chance and smash everything I don't understand. What result?
Would have thought I was about to kill his baby. He turned gray.
That would stop every research, destroy priceless data, waste, oh, I don't know how much. Call it $500 million.
So I thought. Could take all that gear instead of smashing, and let you go on best you can.
That would be almost as bad. You must understand, Господин, that when an experiment is interrupted,
I know, easier than moving anything, and maybe missing some, is to take you all to Complex and quarter you there. We have what used to be Dragoon barracks, but that too would ruin experiments. Besides, where are you from, Doctor?
Princeton, New Jersey.
So, you've been here 5 months and no doubt exercising and wearing weights. Doctor, if we did that, you might never see Princeton again. If we move you, we'll keep you locked up. You'll get soft. If emergency goes on very long, you'll be a loony, like it or not. And all your brainy help with you.
A cocky chum stepped forward, one who had to be sent for twice.
You can't do this. It's against the law.
What law, Господин? Some law back in your hometown?
I turned.
Finn, show him law.
Finn stepped forward and placed a mission bell of gun at man's belly button. Thumbs started to press down. Safety switched, I could see. I said,
Don't kill him, Finn.
then went on.
I will eliminate this man if that's what it takes to convince you. So watch each other. One more offense will kill all your chances of seeing home again, as well as ruining researches. Doctor, I warn you to find ways to keep check on your stuff. Your staff.
I turned to loonies.
Tovarishi, keep them honest. Work up own guard system. Don't take nonsense. Every earthworm is on probation. If you have to eliminate some, don't hesitate.
I turned to Director.
Doctor, any loony can go anywhere, anytime, even your bedroom. Your assistants are now your bosses so far as security is concerned. If a loony decides to follow you or anybody to a WC, don't argue. He might be jumpy.
I turned to loonies.
Security first. You each work for some earthworm. Watch him. Split it among you and don't miss anything. Watch him so close they can't build mousetrap, much less transmitter. If he interferes with work for them, don't worry. Wages will go on.
Could see grins. Lab assistant was best job a loony could find those days, but they worked under earthworms who looked down on us, even ones who pretended and were oh so gracious. I let it go at that. When I had been phoned, I had intended to eliminate offenders. But Prof and Mike set me straight. Plan did not permit violence against Terrans that could be avoided. We set up ears, wideband sensitive receivers, around lab area, since even most directional rigs spills a little in neighborhood. And Mike listened on all phones in area. After that, we chewed nails and hoped. Presently, we relaxed as news up from Earthside showed nothing. They seemed to accept censored transmissions without suspicion, and private and commercial traffic and authorities' transmissions all seemed routine. Meanwhile, we worked, trying in days what should take months. We received one break in timing. No passenger ship was on Luna, and none was due until 7 July. We could have coped, suckered a ship's officers to dine with Warden or something, then mounted guard on its senders or dismantled them. Could not have lifted without our help. In those days, one drain on ice was providing water for reaction mass. Was not much drain compared with grain shipments. One manned ship a month was heavy traffic then, while grain lifted every day. What it did mean was that an incoming ship was not an insuperable hazard. Nevertheless, was lucky break. We were trying so hard to make everything look normal until we could defend ourselves. Grain shipments went on as before. One was catapulted almost as Finn's men were breaking into Warden's residence, and next went out on time, and all others. Neither oversight nor faking for interim. Prof knew what he was doing. Grain shipments were a big operation, for a little country like Luna, and couldn't be changed in one semi-lunar. Bread and beer of too many people was involved. If our committee had ordered embargo and quit buying grain, we would have been chucked out and a new committee with other ideas would have taken over. Prof said that an educational period was necessary. Meanwhile, grain barges catapulted as usual. Luno Hoko kept books and issued receipts, using civil service personnel. Dispatches went out in Warden's name, and Mike talked to Authority Earthside, using Warden's voice. Deputy Administrator proved reasonable. Once he understood, it upped his life expectancy. Chief Engineer stayed on job too. McIntyre was a real loony, given chance, rather than Fink by nature. Other department heads and minor stooges were no problem. Life went on as before, and we were too busy to unwind Authority system and put useful parts up for sale. Over a dozen people turned up claiming to be Simon Jester. Simon wrote a rude verse disclaiming them and had picture on front page of Lunatic, Pravda, and Gong. Wyo let herself go blonde and made trip to see Greg at new catapult site. Then a longer trip, 10 days, to old home in Hong Kong Luna, taking Anna who wanted to see it. Wyo needed a vacation, and Prof urged her to take it, pointing on that she was in touch by phone and that closer party contact was needed in Hong Kong. I took over her still Yagi with Slim and Hazel as my lieutenants. Bright, sharp kids I could trust. Slim was awed to discover that I was Comrade Bork and saw Adam Celine every day. His party name started with G. That being Slim. Made a good team for other reasons, too. Hazel suddenly started showing cushiony curves, and not all from Mimi's superb table. She had reached that point in her orbit. Slim was ready to change her name to Stone any time she was willing to opt. In meantime, he was anxious to do party work he could share with our fierce little redhead. Not everybody was willing. Many comrades turned out to be talk soldiers. Still more thought war was over once we had eliminated peace goons and captured Warden. Others were indignant to learn how far down they were in party structure. They wanted to elect a new structure, themselves at top. Adam received endless calls proposing this or something like it. Would listen, agree, assure them that their services must not be wasted by waiting for election, and refer them to Prof or me. Can't recall any of these ambitious people who amounted to anything when I tried to put them to work. Was endless work, and nobody wanted to do it. Well, a few. Some best volunteers were people party had never located. But in general, loonies in and out of party had no interest in patriotic work unless well paid. One chum who claimed to be a party member, was not, spragged me in Raffles where we set up headquarters and wanted me to contract for 50,000 buttons to be worn by pre-coup veterans of revolution. A small profit for him. I estimate 400% markup. Easy dollars for me, a fine thing for everybody. When I brushed him off, he threatened to denounce me to Adam Celine, a very good friend of mine, I'll have you know, for sabotage. That was the help we got. What we needed was something else. Needed steel at New Catapult, and plenty. Prof asked if really necessary to put steel around rock missiles. I had to point out that an induction field won't grab bare rock. We needed to relocate Mike's ballistic radars at old site and install Doppler radar at new site. Both jobs because we could expect attacks from space at old site. We called for volunteers, got only 2 who could be used, and needed several hundred mechanics who did not mind hard work in pea suits. So we hired, paying what we had to. Luno Hoko went in hot to Bank of Hong Kong Luna. Was no time to steal that much, and most funds had been transferred Earthside and most of funds. Oh my God. This is why it's so hard to read this book, is it's missing because of the patois. Luno Hoko went in hawk to Bank of Hong Kong Luna. Was no time to steal that much, and most funds had been transferred Earthside to stew. A dinkum comrade, Fu Moses Morris, co-signed much paper to keep us going, and wound up broke and started over with a little tailoring shop in Kongville. That was later. Authority scrip dropped from 3 to 1 to 17 to 1 after coup, and civil service people screamed, as Mike was still paying in authority checks. When they said they could stay on or resign, we said they could stay on or resign. Then those we needed, we rehired with Hong Kong dollars, but created a large group not on our side from then on. They longed for good old days and were ready to stab new regime. Grain farmers and brokers were unhappy because payment at Catapult Head continued to be authority scrip at same old fixed prices. "We won't take it!" they cried, and Luno-Hoko man would shrug and tell them they didn't have to, but this grain still went to Authority Earthside. It did. And Authority scrip was all they would get. So take the check, or load your grain back into Rolligons and get it out of here. Most took it. All grumbled, and some threatened to get out of grain and start growing vegetables or fibers or something that brought Hong Kong dollars. And Prof smiled. We needed every drill man in Luna, especially ice miners who owned heavy-duty laser drills, as soldiers. We needed them so badly that, despite being shy, one wing, and rusty, I considered joining up, even though it takes muscle to wrestle a big drill, and prosthetic just isn't muscle. Prof told me not to be a fool. Dodge we had in mind would not work well Earthside. A laser beam carrying heavy power works best in vacuum, but there it works just dandy for whatever range its collimation is good for. These big drills, which had carved through rocks seeking pockets of ice, were now being mounted as artillery to repel space attacks. Both ships and missiles have electronic nervous systems, and does electronic gear no good to blast it with umpteen joules placed in a tight beam. If target is pressured, as manned ships are and most missiles, all it takes is to burn a hole, depressurize it. If not pressured, a heavy laser beam can still kill it, burn eyes, louse guidance, spoil anything depending on electronics, as most everything does. An H-bomb with circuitry ruined is not a bomb, it's just big tub of lithium deuteride that can't do anything but crash. A ship with eyes gone is a derelict, not a warship. Sounds easy. Is not. Those laser drills were never meant for targets 1,000 kilometers away, or even one, and was no quick way to rig their cradles for accuracy. Gunner had to have guts to hold fire until last few seconds, on a target heading at him maybe 2 kilometers per second. But it was best we had, so we organized 1st and 2nd Volunteer Defense Gunners of Free Luna, 2 regiments so that 1st could snub lowly 2nd and 2nd could be jealous of 1st. 1st got older men, 2nd got young and eager. Having called them volunteers, we hired in Hong Kong dollars, and was no accident that ice was being paid for in controlled market in waste paper authority scrip. On top of all, we were talking up a war scare. Adam Saleen talked over video, reminding that authority was certain to try to regain its tyranny, and we had only days to prepare. Papers quoted him and published stories of their own. We had made special effort to recruit newsmen before coup. People were urged to keep pea suits always near and to test pressure alarms in homes. A volunteer civil defense corps was organized in each warren. What with moonquakes always with us, each warren's pressure co-op always had sealing crews ready at any hour, even with silicone stay soft and fiberglass any warren leaks. That half sentence doesn't make sense to me. Let me reread that. Even with silicone stay soft and fiberglass. Oh, because I'm reading it from the wrong perspective. Even with silicone Staysoft and fiberglass, any Warren leaks. Because the Warrens can leak. Okay, got it. In Davis tunnels, our boys did maintenance on seal every day. But now we recruited hundreds of emergency sealing crews, mostly Stilyagi, drilled them with fake emergencies, had them stay in pea suits with helmets open when on duty. They did beautifully. But idiots made fun of them. Play soldiers, Adam's little apples, other names. A team was going through a drill, showing they could throw a temporary lock around one that had been damaged. And one of these pinheads stood by and rode them loudly. Civil defense team went ahead, completed temporary lock, tested it with helmets closed. It held. Came out, grabbed this joker, took him through into temporary lock, and on out into zero pressure. Dumped him. Belittlers kept opinions to themselves after that. Prof thought we ought to send out a gentle warning not to eliminate so peremptorily. Because the word's cut in half, I can't read it. Peremptorily. I opposed it and got my way. Could see no better way to improve breed. Certain types of loudmouthism should be a capital offense among decent people. But our biggest headaches were self-anointed statesmen. Did I say that loonies are non-political? They are, when it comes to doing anything. But doubt if was ever a time two loonies over a liter of beer did not swap loud opinions about how things ought to be run. As mentioned, these self-appointed political scientists tried to grab Adam Selene's ear, but Prof had a place for them. Each was invited to take part in Ad Hoc Congress for Organization of Free Luna, which met in Community Hall in Luna City, then resolved to stay in session until work was done. A week in El City, a week in Noviland, then Hong Kong, and start over. All sessions were in video. Prof presided over first, and Adam Selene addressed them by video and encouraged them to do a thorough job.
History is watching you.
I listened to some sessions, then cornered Prof and asked what in Bog's name was he up to.
Thought you didn't want any government. Have you heard those nuts since you turned them loose?
He smiled most dimply smile. What's troubling you, Manuel? Many things were troubling me. With me breaking heart trying to round up heavy drills and men who could treat them as guns, these idlers had spent an entire afternoon discussing immigration. Some wanted to stop it entirely. Some wanted to tax it, high enough to finance government, when 99 out of 100 loonies had to be dragged to the rock. Some wanted to make it selective by ethnic ratios, wondered how they would count me. Some wanted to limit it to females until we were 50-50. That had produced a Scandinavian shout. Jakober, tell 'em to send us whores. Thousands and thousands of whores. I marry 'em, I betcha. Was most sensible remark all afternoon. Another time they argued time. Sure, Greenwich time bears no relation to lunar, but why should it when we live underground? Show me a loony who can sleep 2 weeks and work 2 weeks. Lunars don't fit our metabolism. What was urged was to make a lunar exactly equal to 28 days instead of 29 days, 12 hours, 44 minutes, 2.78 seconds, and do this by making days longer, and hours, minutes, and seconds, thus making each semi-lunar exactly 2 weeks. Sure, lunar is necessary for many purposes. Controls when we go up on surface, why we go, and how long we stay. But, aside from throwing us out of gear with our only neighbor, had that wordy vacuum skull thought what this would do to every critical figure in science and engineering? As an electronics man, I shuddered. Throw away every book, table, instrument, and start over? I know that some of my ancestors did that in switching from Old English units to MKS, but they did it to make things easier. 14 inches to a foot and some odd number of feet to a mile. Ounces and pounds. Oh, bog! Made sense to change that, but why go out of your way to create confusion? Somebody wanted a committee to determine exactly what loony language is, then fine everybody who talked Earthside English or other language. Oh, my people! I read tax proposals in Lunatic. 4 sorts of single taxers. A cubic tax that would penalize a man if he extended tunnels. A head tax. Everybody pays same. Income tax. Like to see anyone figure income of Davis family or try to get information out of mum. And an air tax, which was not fees we paid then. But something else. Hadn't realized Free Luna was going to have taxes. Hadn't had any before and got along. You paid for what you paid for what you got. Tannstaffel. How else? Another time, some pompous choom proposed that bad breath and body odors had be made an elimination offense. Could almost sympathize, having been stuck on occasion in a capsule with such stinks, but doesn't happen often and tends to be self-correcting. Chronic offenders, or unfortunates who can't correct, aren't likely to reproduce, seeing how choosy women are. One female, most were men, but women made up for it in silliness, had long list she wanted to make permanent laws about private matters. No more plural marriage of any sort. No divorces. No fornication. Had to look that one up. No drinks stronger than 4% beer. Church services only on Saturdays, and all else to stop that day. Air and temperature and pressure engineering, lady? Phones and capsules? A long list of drugs to be prohibited and a shorter list dispensed only by licensed physicians. What is a licensed physician? Healer I go to has a sign reading Practical Doctor, makes book on side, which is why I go to him. Look, lady, aren't any medical schools in Luna. Then, I mean. She even wanted to make gambling illegal. If a loony couldn't roll double or nothing, he would go to a shop that would, even if dice were loaded. Thing that got me was not her list of things she hated, since she was obviously crazy as a cyborg, but fact that always somebody agreed with her prohibitions. Must be a yearning deep in human heart to stop other people from doing as they please. Rules, laws, always for other fellow. A murky part of us. Something we had before we came down out of the trees, and failed to shuck when we stood up. Because not one of those people said, "Please pass this so I won't be able to do something I know I should stop." Yet, Tovarishi was always for something that they hated to see neighbors doing. Stop them for their own good, not because speaker claimed to be harmed by it. Listening to that session, I was almost sorry we got rid of Mort the Wart. He stayed holed up with his women and didn't tell us how to run private lives. Oh, here we go. But Prof didn't get excited. He went on smiling.
Manuel, do you really think that mob of retarded children can pass any laws?
You told them to. Urged them to.
My dear Manuel, I was simply putting all my nuts in one basket. I know those nuts. I've listened to them for years. I was very careful in selecting their committees. They all have built-in confusion. They will quarrel. The chairman I forced on them while letting them elect him is a ditherer who could not unravel a piece of string. Thinks every subject needs more study. I almost needn't have bothered. More than 6 people cannot agree on anything. 3 is better, and 1 is perfect for a job that 1 can do. This is why parliamentary bodies all through history, when they accomplished anything, owed it to a few strong men who dominated the rest. Never fear, son, this ad hoc Congress will do nothing. Or if they pass something through sheer fatigue, it will be so loaded with contradictions that it will have to be thrown out. In the meantime, they are out of our hair. Besides, there is something we need them for. Later.
Thought you said they could do nothing.
Oh, they won't do this. One man will write it, a dead man, and late at night, when they are very tired, they'll pass it by acclamation.
Who is this dead man? You don't mean Mike?
No, no. Mike is far more alive than those yammerheads. The dead man is Thomas Jefferson, first of the rational anarchists, my boy, and one who once almost managed to slip over his non-system through the most beautiful rhetoric ever written. But they caught him at it, which I hope to avoid. I cannot improve on his phrasing. I shall merely adapt it to Luna and the 21st century.
Heard of him. Freed slaves, yet?
One might say he tried but failed. Never mind. How are the defenses progressing? I don't see how we can keep up the pretense past the arrival date of this next ship.
Can't be ready then.
Mike says we must be.
We weren't, but ship never arrived. Those scientists outsmarted me and loonies I had told to watch them. Was a rig at focal point of biggest reflector, and loony assistants believed double talk about astronomical purpose, a new wrinkle in radio telescopes. I suppose it was ultra microwave, and stuff was bounced at reflector by a waveguide and thus left scope lined up nicely by mirror, remarkably like early radar. And metal latticework and foil heat shield of barrel stopped stray radiation. Thus, ears I had staked out heard nothing. They put message across, their version and in detail. First we heard was demand from Authority to Warden to deny this hoax, find hoaxer, put a stop to it. So instead, we gave them a Declaration of Independence.
In Congress assembled July 4th, 2076.
Was beautiful. And with that, I do actually have to run. I have some things I gotta get done. Hope people are enjoying. Things are getting exciting again. Earth has twigged to what they're up to, because of course they have. It was inevitable. They were always going to have to come to terms with Earth. There's going to be a big chunk. There's going to be a bit of a brief chunk, rather, coming up where things are kind of punchy and violent, but then it kind of cools down and is like, okay, how do we earnestly and honestly deal with Terra? We've made our position clear. Um, we've shown that we're in a position of some power, but are willing to deal with them, but we do have to have our own rights. And that's actually where I think things get particularly interesting, albeit maybe a little fantastical in terms of people actually agreeing to things. um, but that's just me. So yeah, you get more more of Heinlein's libertarian worldview in this particular chapter, as you likely noticed. Um, I think uh, I think everyone can take that at face value if they need to. If you want to say, "Oh, Frag, you're awful. You're reading off libertarian rhetoric." I'm reading a book. More importantly, I'm reading a work of fiction. The views contained therein are the views of the characters contained in that work of fiction. If they happen to if they happen to be the views of the person who wrote it, that's fine and dandy, but that isn't necessarily true. In this case, it is, but them's the breaks. Whether they're my views or not is irrelevant. I'm reading it because it's a fascinating tale of lunar revolution, and it's moon themed, which is kind of a low key theme I wanted to do this year and really, really didn't work out um, at all for various reasons. Not the way I wanted it to. We've gotten two moon related stories this year, including this one. We might be able to get another one if I am able to do Artemis by Andy Weir, or possibly From Earth to the Moon by Otto Willie Gale, which is old school. And I mean old school. What's the publishing date on that? It is aged.
golly, that's an old one. It's like we're talking Jules Verne era, and it is almost uncomfortably accurate in some of the figures it uses. It's also like one of the earliest examples of somebody having the idea to use rockets, rocketry, and a lot of the figures for that, in terms of accuracy of getting an object from Earth to the Moon, including its deployment system, are like practically spot on. They're not the space shuttle, they're not the Apollo lander. It's like it's different than that. I cannot find my copy. Where is this book? I'm standing here staring in my gosh darn wall, and I don't see it, which means I've put it somewhere dumb. It's around. It's one I'd like to read aloud. It's longish and it's a bit dry, but it's entertaining and it's fascinating to see how much of the science people knew back like at the beginning of the century, uh, the 20th century. It's incredible how much of the science they already had. They just needed the materials technology and the willpower to do it, and that was basically it. The science was done. The science was a done deal. They had it. I can't find it. I can't find it now. It's I have it around. No, that's not it. Whatever. Point is, Moon Stories was intended to be one of my low-key background themes this year, and it didn't quite pan out. So instead, we're getting a tale of revolution at a maybe a prescient time. That was not my intention. That was wholly unintentional, I swear. Believe me, whether you want to or not, it was not intended. But yeah, hope people enjoyed. I do other streams throughout the week. I have a Mecha Mondays stream, which I may not be able to do this coming week, where I do something giant robot related or mecha adjacent. And I have a Warframe Wednesdays stream where I do something Warframey for a couple hours. Um, that hopefully should not be an issue this week, but I think Mecha Mondays I might not be able to do this coming Monday because I have other obligations that are kind of crowding it out already. Oh, it's called Rocket to the Moon, not Earth to the Moon, by Otto Willie Gale. Otto Willie, Willi Gale, Gail. Otto, Otto. Um, and it is excellent. It is an excellent read. Okay, I do have to scoot. Um, hope people enjoyed, and see you next time, Space Cowboy. Zzz.